No, thank you. I think Dr. Kalai Selvi has laid the basis of what we are up to. Now, as far as the startup movement is concerned, all of you would appreciate that it began with a call by none less than the Honorable Prime Minister from the ramparts of Red Fort when he said, "Stand up India, start up India." So to begin with, I think many people would not actually comprehend what it was meant to be, but very soon we saw how it picked up, and within a few years, from just 2-3 digits, we had gone up to lakhs. So we are now from just about 350 startups in 2014, we are more than 1 lakh. And that has also paved the way and sort of tried to give a different direction to the Indian mindset that there is livelihood outside the government job, which could be sometimes much more lucrative. Now, as far as the Department of Science and Technology and all of us associated with the scientific fraternity are concerned, I do believe, and I have a very considered conviction that unless it is a sustainable startup, it doesn't hold good, because you might start off as a venture, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't put you at the same place as you find your other peers, because after all, we are all children of the same society. So each one wants to have a kind of a living which your peer has. So at the end of 5 years, if you find you've done some very miraculous, innovative startup task and also earn some kudos for you, but you find your peer riding in a big motor car, I can't even know the names of the latest ones, you would rather, something inside you would tell you, hell with all this, what am I doing and what is it? So we have to also give them the sense of esteem of being honorable members of the society, while also at the same time serving the cause of startup, serving the cause of innovation, serving the cause of research and development. So that is what I feel can sustain this movement, and which has picked up largely because of the personal intervention and persistence push given by the Honorable Prime Minister. He had been talking about it virtually from every third platform. Now, what do we do to sustain these startups? I think one very important prerequisite is to have equal participation of all the stakeholders and an early industry linkage, which I have been saying very often wherever I go. So link the industry right from the beginning. I was saying so also a few years back. I was not sure whether I was right or wrong, because this entire experience and experiment is new. But I today feel vindicated on account of 2 success stories which have given a boost to the startup movement. And one of them, incidentally, is related to the place where they have chosen to have the North India startup. So one of those success stories is the one which was spearheaded under Dr. Kalai Selvi, and which was born in a small town called Bhadrava, which is very close to the venue of the Startup Expo that they are going to hold tomorrow. And the success happened because somehow Dr. Kalai Selvi and her team had subconsciously taken note of what I have been telling them, to have an early industry linkage. So they had already in place an understanding with some of the perfume industry representatives. So even before the cultivation of lavender started. So once it started, and of course as they were doing complete hand-holding, when the products got ready, there were already market representatives waiting to take over them. And very soon they found a market in places like Mumbai and several other cities of Maharashtra. I mean, the small bottles of perfume started selling for as much as 15,000 per bottle or so. It not only had a self-expanding effect, you didn't have to do much then. You started off with just, I think, half a dozen of startups, and today they have 3,000 startups in that lavender entrepreneurship. And the infectious stimulus of that was so compelling that we, I think, have at least 2 or 3 boys who gave up their jobs in Bengaluru in the corporate sector and came back. So I had personally had the opportunity of talking to them, because for my own learning, I always try to seek there. So I asked one of them, I said, what made you? He said, I realized that after having done so many degrees, I was slogging 14 hours, 12 hours for somebody else. Whereas these boys, with half the education that I have, were having a fun and also making better money than me. So why not go back home? So I think that that is the essence of what Prime Minister Modi has been repeatedly saying, even in his Rozgar Mela's speeches. I think that success story has emanated from this place. So that again confirms the virtues of early industry linkage. The second one is the vaccine, from biotechnology. So even before the COVID vaccine was developed, the DNA vaccine was developed, the market was actually waiting for it to happen. And the rest is history, so I don't have to tell you all that. I mean, there came a stage when they wanted more vaccines. They were not in a position to produce so many. So that, I think, is enough vindication. And that also is the reason that we are now, since we have started this practice of holding such expos in different parts of the country, so and also because now we have to move to the B towns, because if we have to actually make it successful, B towns, and also make them realize that, look here, startup does not mean only IT, because incidentally it came from abroad, got landed in Bengaluru, and got identified with IT. So this aroma, this vaccine, these are all examples of non-IT startups, which might require a skill of a different nature, not necessarily an IITian. And that is one reason why they are choosing B towns to have these expos. And this town also, because it is located on the borders of the three states and union territories, the Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir. It's a very important border town, also located on the border of the international border. So that is one. And the other part is, incidentally, through the Department of Biotechnology, the CSIR Institute, which is actually organizing it under the leadership of Dr. Kalai Selvi, happens to be IIM Jammu. So again, because the institute was located in a non-capital zone, in the sense that not in one of the metros, it did not receive the kind of attention that it deserves. And it is, in fact, one of the premier institutes of CSIR, possibly the oldest one. It started off way back in 1942 or 43, even before independence, then became a part of CSIR. And I would somehow saying that it is rich in three matters. It's location, legacy, and literature. Location, because as I said, it's strategically located right in the border of the three states. Legacy, because it was founded by Sir Ramnath Chopra, along with Bhatnagar, who were the founding fathers of CSIR. Sir Ramnath Chopra was knighted, became Sir. Bhatnagar was, I think, received the Sword of Empire. So both of them decorated by the erstwhile British government, and then went on to serve the independent India also under the new government. And so that is the legacy. And literature, because this is the institute which gave the world the gift of mint, the mouth freshener and whatever you use. It's a lesser known fact, which later, of course, earlier he was in Jammu and then he went to Lucknow. So both the labs. And aroma, of course, is also from there. And the Savai Google was on rheumatoid arthritis drug was also. So they are quite way ahead. And now in the next step, as we did 1 week, 1 lab experiment last year, we will now also go into thematic, one theme, 1 week. Because we have some of the CSIR institutes and also institutes outside, which are engaged in the same agenda. At least in CSIR, we have at least 3 or 4 labs which are dedicated to drug research. And so also under DBT. So we would then be coordinating. And the third, another feature which I think would be worth emulating from IIM is that this was the first institute which has engaged itself in multiple MOUs. So it has an MOU with the AIMS, because it made best use of all the other institutions. It is an MOU with the AIMS, it has an MOU with the Government Medical Postgraduate Institute, which has an MOU with IIT, it has an MOU with IIM. Because I said when we keep talking of the market linkage, how can you keep the IIM away? just believing that management has nothing to do with science. So that multiple experiment that they have started, which has paid them dividends, and yes, and they have also, it was from there that the new initiative of engaging synergy in academics also began. So they have PhD and MD postgraduate medical scholars from the medical institutes getting co-guides from CSIR. So which is a practice which we are going to, spread across the country because we have so much in common. So I think there were many reasons why they thought. And North India, since we have Mohali, we have Palampur, hardly talked about, we have Chandigarh, so huge lot. And since it was believed the startup movement was picking up with a greater pace from south compared to north, we thought we could at least by this initiative we could shift the focus there. And I have to profusely thank the Honorable Vice President of India. He himself offered that he would like to go there, and we even, in fact, we were very keen and also embarrassed to not cause inconvenience to him. So we were repeatedly asking him what would be convenient to him. He said, no, anywhere you take me, it will be convenient for me, even if I have to spend an extra day. So much was the indulgence and patronage from Honorable Vice President of India, who usually doesn't have much of eternity in the B towns. So to that extent also, and I'm sure, yes, and she said, why media here? Because when we talk of integration, it has to be an extended integration. Why we didn't pick up all these years? Because we were working in cocoons, in silos, and even space is now opened up. It's amazing, you see, not less than 10-15,000 spectators at every launching on the spot, at a place which is forbidden for everybody, even to the outside scientists, till about 4 years ago, which again I think we owe to the path-breaking decision taken by this government headed by Prime Minister. So we are engaging media because we think that we would not be able to achieve the envisaged outcomes and reach the logical conclusions without your kind support. Because often the complaint is, no, I'm not complaining, that media doesn't find much interest in aroma and all those things. They find more interest in the political news. But I'm sure that also is now undergoing a change. And very soon you will be spearheading what we are actually yearning for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now the floor is open for questions from the media. Kindly introduce yourself before asking the question. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. My name is Dr. Manbina Chawla from Biospectrum. My question is general because you said that you are reaching out to the unreached. So, Kathua is one region. And if that's the target in North India, what about the other parts, East, West? South is, of course, more recognized. But is there a plan of action in the coming year, now that 24 has just started?
No, sure. That's precisely what I meant. We would reach out. In fact, incidentally, since I'm dealing with more than one department, I have, suggested to them to engage in this kind of an experiment after having successfully accomplished it in another department called the Department of Administrative Reforms, where we started the practice of having regional conferences in governance, which is rather a lesser, seminar-sounding topic. But we started off from Leh, then the Srinagar, Jammu, went down up to Hyderabad, there up to Shimla, there Nainital, Bhopal, Guwahati, the last capital of Northeast, Arunachal, Itanagar. So I think same we would, and we have a better infrastructure because we have 37, she's a big empress, 37, she can go anywhere, and the, everything is already ready. We have 14 institutes with the DBT. So there we had problems. We had to, engage the local support also for logistic reasons, for venue, Here we don't have. So, but the mindset was such that we were actually not reaching out, and we were not also integrating, and we thought that was the norm, and that's how space also remained closed. But once it opened up, it's opened up like anything, and then also that would also integrate us amongst ourselves. The other day, yesterday only, I was telling the Raman Institute, I said you should have celebrated the Expo Sat, Pallav is talking about, more than them. But they were not, conditioned like that, because the primary science payload was developed, conceived, manufactured from Raman Institute. Only launching was done there. So that whole of science and whole of nation, the whole of government, so I think our conditioning will change, and more when we open out, we also have the opportunity to interact with the media friends who are more outgoing, who have a different kind of an exposure. We will learn from you also how to communicate what we are doing.
Dr.
Director Bayrek wants to add something?
No, in addition to what our Honorable Minister said, we have also set up 75 bioincubators across the country, which includes very remote areas also. So Northeast, if you say Shillong, Manipur.
And also, not only in your institutes, they have set up outside also.
Outside also.
In the universities, in the IITs.
So this will lead to a great boost to the startups from the second tier cities, to tier 2 cities. And there's a lot of aspiration from tier 2 cities.
And also because if you have to change the mindset of the youth and bring them out of that conditioning of sarkari naukri, I think you need to focus very seriously on the B towns, because there is where this affliction is more compared to the big metros.
डॉक्टर साहब, राकेश बोल रहा हूँ। जो स्टार्टअप पॉलिसी है उसके तहत 100 से ज़्यादा स्टार्टअप जो हैं वो यूनिकॉर्न बन चुके हैं। अब स्टार्टअप कल्चर को बढ़ावा देने के लिए आपने जेनेसिस कार्यक्रम जो तहत प्रोत्साहन देने का लक्ष्य रखा था, क्या स्थिति है अभी उसको लेकर?
स्टार्टअप्स को बढ़ावा देने के लिए हम मल्टीपल लेवल पर काम कर रहे हैं, सिर्फ एक सतह पे नहीं है। इनफैक्ट अगर जो हमारा इकोसिस्टम इतना बढ़िया बनाया गया है इस 10 साल में कि we can even go outside the support system available within the science departments and science. So, for example, and there are youngsters who have done that. For example, a young girl has tried that. आप वहाँ से मुद्रा मिलता है आपको, और वहाँ से आपको किसान निधि मिलती है, यहाँ से आपको अरोमा का सपोर्ट मिलता है, और यहाँ से आपको बायोटेक का मिलता है. So you can actually turn into a huge agri entrepreneur. So we are trying to, that's why unless we integrate, हमें समझ नहीं आएगा कि कहाँ. So I am, wherever I am with the youngsters, I tell them to do a search that I am into this, where can I get linked? So you will have an extended integration. So one is, पहले क्या हो रहा था till a few years ago, we were not integrated even within. You see, first is integration. Within the same ministry is dealing with DBT, the Department of Biotechnology, the CSIR and DST under the same ministry. But the institutes in the same ministry were not integrating with each other. The CSIR has at least 3 labs dedicated purely to drug research, not still integrating. So first we started from there. Then इंटर हो गया कि जो बाकी के हैं इस मिनिस्ट्री से बाहर के हेल्थ के भी हैं, अब हमने हेल्थ के साथ शुरू कर दिया, जैसे मैंने कहा वहाँ के PhD और MD इसको लेकर. फिर हो गया एक्सटेंडेड में IIT आ गया. जैसे हमने कोविड ने हमें सिखाया कि वेंटिलेटर डेवलप हुआ IIT कानपुर में और इस्तेमाल किया एम्स में और बाकी जगहों पे, तो उस तरह से ही करके ये स्टार्टअप्स भी हो पाएंगे जब इनको सपोर्ट मिलेगा, क्योंकि फिर आगे तक, क्योंकि शुरू में उनको सपोर्ट वही चाहिए. और उसके लिए भारत सरकार ने इतनी सारी अब योजनाएं शुरू कर दी है कि इनफैक्ट ये तो हम साइंस स्टार्टअप्स की ज़्यादा बात हो रही है, नहीं तो वो एरियाज विश्वकर्मा जिसकी कभी किसी ने चिंता ही नहीं की, यानी एक बहुत बड़ा वर्ग हिंदुस्तान का। और जब भी हम जाया करते थे मुरादाबाद और दूसरी जगहों पे मुझे जिम्मेवारी दी गई थी, तो पुराने बुजुर्ग कहते थे कि साहब एक एक साल लग जाता है हमें एक ऑब्जेक्ट तैयार करने में। अब बनाई भी जाती रही, बच्चे चले गए कहीं रोजगार के लिए बाहर, क्योंकि वहाँ उनको कुछ मिलता नहीं, तो अब ये आगे कैसे चलेगा। तो ये ऐसी एक ऐसा तबका था, एक ऐसा वर्ग जो रिवायती ढंग से अपनी जीविका भी कमाता था और हिंदुस्तान की संस्कृति को जिंदा रखने का भी काम करता था। और पहली बार इस सरकार ने इनके लिए लिया विश्वकर्मा। अब उसमें क्या होगा कि जब आपको सपोर्ट मिल रहा है कुछ 1 लाख अपने औजार खरीदने को, फिर ट्रेनिंग के पीरियड में भी आपको स्टाइपेंड मिल रहा है, यानी आपको प्रशिक्षण हासिल करने के लिए फीस देनी पड़ती है इंस्टीट्यूट में, यहाँ आपको इंस्टीट्यूट वजीफा दे रहा है। तो जब ऐसा होगा तो जो हमारे युवा हैं वो इन रिवायती धंधों की तरफ आएंगे। तो ये एक नया स्टार्टअप का एक मरहला शुरू होगा।
सर, मैं प्रशांत हूँ न्यूज़ 24 से। आपका कल ही स्टार्टअप कलेक्ट शुरू होने जा रहा है। इसके पहले पिछले 5 साल में कितने स्टार्टअप्स आपके, अगर कठुआ की ही बात करें आपकी कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी में, स्टार्ट हुए, सक्सेस रेट कितना है, और अगर कोई स्टार्टअप करता है तो उसके लिए जो ज़रूरी बेसिक्स चीज़ें हैं वो कैसे पूरी होंगी? अगर एक बिल्कुल लेमैन अगर स्टार्टअप कोई करना चाहे तो बहुत सी फाइल वर्क है, लोन वर्क है, ये सब कैसे मतलब उसको सुविधा आप देंगे कि वो स्मूथली आगे बढ़ सके? और सक्सेस रेट क्या है अगर आपकी कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी की बात करें, जम्मू में जहाँ जहाँ पिछले 5 साल में कितने स्टार्टअप्स खुले और सक्सेस हुए?
ऐसा है कि ये जो आप बता रहे हैं कि वो जो प्रोसीजरल डिलेज हैं वो तो ओवरऑल एक इशू है, उसको व्यापक ढंग से पहले से उसमें काफ़ी हद तक अंकुश लगा है, क्योंकि एक बार इसका एनालिसिस भी हुआ था कि हमारे यहाँ कितना टाइम लगता है क्लियरेंस में और बाहर कितना लगता है। बाहर कहीं कहीं 2-3 दिन भी लगते थे, नॉर्वे इत्यादि में हमारे 21, तो वो भी अब पीरियड कम हो गया, क्योंकि जब से मॉनिटरिंग मैकेनिज्म शुरू किया, ऑनलाइन सिस्टम्स आ गए। इवन हमारा गवर्नेंस है फाइल वर्क, हमारे 5 जगह से जाती थी फाइल डीओपीटी में, अब उसको हमने घटा के 3 कर दिया और वो 3 भी ऑनलाइन हो गए। तो वो आया तो रात को ही फाइल वापस हो जाती है, सुबह ही वापस हो जाती है, मे नॉट बी वर्किंग। तो वो तो टेक्नोलॉजी का भरपूर इस्तेमाल करके उसमें किया गया है। बाकी ये है कि ये जो इस तरह के इलाके हैं जो बहुत ज़्यादा आईटी से भी नहीं थे, वहाँ पर यह एहसास कराना ज़रूरी था कि आईटी के बाहर भी एक स्टार्टअप की दुनिया है। अब विश्वकर्मा भी एक तरह का स्टार्टअप है, एग्रीकल्चर भी स्टार्टअप है, डेयरी स्टार्टअप, इस बात का एहसास उन्हें होने लगा और बड़ी भारी संख्या में। आपने वहीं की बात की तो आई थिंक ऑलमोस्ट 3000 पीपल नाउ एंगेज्ड इन अरोमा स्टार्टअप्स में ही। तो वो संख्या बढ़ती जा रही है, क्योंकि जैसे जैसे सक्सेस स्टोरीज वो देखते हैं एक दूसरे की, तो फिर वो उसकी तरफ आकर्षित होते हैं। जहाँ तक सरकार का ताल्लुक है, हर तरह की सपोर्ट है, क्योंकि और बायरैक इज वन एजेंसी जिसका अब दूसरे लोग भी इसकी मिसाल पे काम करने लगे हैं। तो हर तरह की हमारी सपोर्ट दी भी जाती है, टेक्नोलॉजी सपोर्ट भी, नॉलेज सपोर्ट भी और फाइनेंशियल सपोर्ट भी, और फिर मार्केट लिंकेज भी। बहुत से लोगों को उसकी जानकारी नहीं है, उसके लिए भी हमें थोड़ा बहुत मीडिया का भी सहयोग अनिवार्य है कि थोड़ा हमने भी उसको सोशल मीडिया के बाकी साधनों के जरिए उसको आगे बढ़ाने की कोशिश की है।
Before we have the question from Pallavji sir, Jammu media has also joined, and there's a question from Gaurav from Jammu Links News, and he wants to ask, how do you see startup culture has grown in Jammu and Kashmir especially, and has youth started moving from government service to startup scenario, and how the success of Purple Revolution has changed the economy and tourism sector of far-flung region in Doda region?
Yeah, I think to take the first part, the very fact that we are discussing startup and in the context of Jammu, in the context of B towns, in the context of North India itself is a success. Because till a few years ago, or even till a few months ago, if I broached the subject of startup, everybody would start looking the other way. Now they feel interested to understand what it is because they find something coming out of this. So, and that I think the question coming from that region, they also deserve the credit because the aroma mission and the purple revolution was born in that region, partly Bhadrawa, Gulmarg, and the success story is now echoing across the country. You would be amused when I tell you that they had a lavender festival in Bhadrawa, and there was a team sent by the government of Himachal Pradesh and the government of Nagaland to study what it was all about. And the new Chief Minister of Himachal directed the Divisional Commissioner of Simla to get connected with the collector over there and find out what was this happening. And now they have also started this. Because this, you see, the entire belt of Himalayas had remained unexplored. So this is the now new potential which is going to add to the growth story of India as well in that Amrit Kal period that we talk about. And as far as the Naukri is concerned, I think that all of us, the media, the social leaders, the opinion makers, have to join together to inculcate that there is something beyond Sarkari Naukri. And that's how it's happening. It has happened. It has taken off to a larger extent in some parts of the country, like for example, Gujarat. I was taken aback when I saw that very few people were actually filling up the civil services form there. So much is a change of mindset. But when it starts happening here also, and more these success stories, more it will happen. And I think that we need to educate, like when we had the first ever national level biotech startup expo in Delhi, which lasted 4 days, I made it a point to ensure that at least one day, which was possibly a Sunday, when the students come, they should be next time accompanied with one of the parents. Because their parents need to be educated as much as the students. You tell them all the good things about startup or whatever new experiment, they go home and the parents are still living in the past, so they undo all that has happened. So parents need to be educated equally well, also the opinion makers.
नमस्कार जितेंद्र सिंह साहब, नया साल आपको शुभ हो। दो छोटी सवाल, एक सजेशन सर, ये लैवेंडर वाला जो सक्सेस स्टोरी है एग्री स्टार्टअप का और एक छोटी जगह भदरवा से शुरू हुआ, मैंने खुद भी देखा, उस पे एक सर वाइट पेपर या कुछ रिपोर्ट बनवाओ, सो दैट इलेक्शन आ रहा है सर, जल्दी से बनवाओ, आपकी कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी है। दूसरा सर जो सवाल है मेरा, आपने बात की एक्सपो सैट की, आपने बात की रामन इफेक्ट की, सर थोड़ा सा समझा दो, ये जो इसरो ने हैट्रिक मारी है एक्सपो सैट के साथ, आपका ही अपना डिपार्टमेंट है, थोड़ा उस पर समझा दो तहसील से कि ये जो हैट्रिक है ये कितना मीनिंगफुल है कंट्री के लिए, चंद्रयान, उसके बाद आदित्य और अब एक्सपो सैट, ऑल ऑफ साइंस अप्रोच।
I am glad. Pallav ji, of course, has been taking keen interest in all our scientific endeavors right from beginning for more than 2 decades now. But now, the mainstream media, I was rather gratified this morning to read, at least in 2 newspapers, exclusive editorials dedicated to ExpoSat and talking the same terms of hat-trick and the success of ISRO. Now, I think in the times to come, somebody would take up this subject to analyze why it didn't happen earlier. We had the same kind of stuff. We didn't lack in human resource. We didn't lack in commitment. We didn't lack in capabilities. And the passion was so much. You see those archive pictures of Vikram Sarabhai carrying a launcher on the carriage of his bicycle. So in other words, I am tempted to believe that we had the human resource, we had the scientific caliber, we didn't have that enabling milieu, or we didn't have that support system or that ecosystem, which is sometimes beyond the purview of a scientific worker, which is to be contributed by the policymakers of the country, by the political leadership. And that lapse was made up in the last 10 years. And primarily because Prime Minister Modi was very forthcoming. Now in the space sector, for example, there used to be a team of 10 and they would work in isolation. And they had got used, and the country also had got used, that look here, this is an area which is to be functioning behind a veil of secrecy in confidentiality, nor have they to meet us, nor do we reach out to them. And they were reconciled. There was not even a demand, then let's open out. But it sounded very strange, and that was precisely what was retarding our growth. And many of our youngsters, because we have one of the best institutes in the world in Trivandrum, they were passing out and going out because there were no avenues even after that in the space sector. And once this opened up, you see the miracle. And earlier on, the entire nation has got involved. So that gives a sense of esteem to the scientific workers there. Also has added to their resource pool, both knowledge-wise as well as financially. There's a huge industry investment happening, huge startup investment happening. Our first lot of startups like Skyroot, etc., have turned into very lucrative entrepreneurs now, even manufacturers. And they are also adding value to the work over there. Now, I was telling Somnath the other day, I said the manner in which you found every Indian glued to the television screen during the Chandrayaan landing has only one parallel, when India plays against Pakistan. So if they win, they throw flowers on the television. If they lose, they break the television set. But in any way, in any case, they are glued. So that is because, now that is precisely what is meant by whole of science, whole of government, whole of nation. The entire country is feeling it has a stake in space growth. And we are going to be a huge space economy in the times to come. At least we are going to contribute substantially. We are just about 8 billion. But we would be 40 billion after a few years. And then maybe 100 billion by 2030, 2045. And this is also happening. And this quantum jump is happening. And the foreign evaluators are saying that we'll even move faster, because the investment has started happening at a very fast rate. We just had one startup, one or two startups till 4 years back. Today we have more than 190. The figure was 190 till a few days ago. It might have crossed. See the huge difference happening. Because Prime Minister Modi allowed us to open it to private players. And they were in such a huge numbers we never realized. I mean, they were waiting to happen. We were not allowing them to happen.
Question from the center.
Sir, good afternoon. Sagar from PTI. I have two questions. You're talking about startups. So, is there any mechanism to track how many of these startups succeed, and do you have a number for, that these many have succeeded and received funding on their own? Another question is, today is January 3. On any other year, the Prime Minister would have inaugurated the Indian Science Congress. That has not happened today. And has the government withdrawn support forever from the Indian Science Congress Association?
So confining ourselves only to startup this morning. So taking the first question. See, yes, we have various methods of tracking. In fact, I personally was interested, so we even studied the different tracking systems being adopted by different countries. Like, for example, one of the methods applied in US is that they have an annual meeting, others they call up. We are very conscious of that, but we are not very much doing it very much officially, because the movement has just picked up in India. So the more you try figuring out who has not gone beyond this, one is not, it may sometimes have a sort of demotivating effect. So let's come out with some success stories in a larger number, and then we would actually be able to even publish it. Because the success stories have now started coming one after the other. And they are still amazing. You see, the first ever private rocket manufacturing unit has been started in Hyderabad by the same two boys who were our first rocket launchers from the private sector, Sriharikota. And I went there just for my own learning and found that they had actually gone to the next level. They are producing rockets of much lighter weight, because now they are using carbon material, synthetic material, instead of using the earlier metals which we had. So that adds not only financial value, but also technology value. So let these success stories emanate, and then we would, of course. But I think it's heartening. You see, what has given India esteem across the world is that we have proved ourselves in accomplishing in those areas in which we were not thought about much. Now, vaccine is one. In India, even healthcare is not taken very seriously. It's not a great priority even at the social level. If you fall sick, as I always say, you wait for a few days. If you get well, it's Maa ka Ashirwad. If you don't get well, it is Pishle Janam ka Karam. So you have all the counseling inbuilt. You see, that country, where even therapeutic healthcare is not done seriously, has now being acclaimed as a protective healthcare leader. We are the first to give a DNA vaccine. See, what a huge change of perception about this country and about our priorities. And the second, of course, is space. We started out much later. ISRO was established in 1969. Is that right, Pallav? And that was the year, you know what? It didn't make news for ISRO being established. It made news because the first human being in the form of Neil Armstrong, an American, had landed on the surface. So we started from where they had already accomplished. And today we are at South Pole where they are yet to reach. They are looking up to us. So these, success stories have actually changed India's perception in the minds of the rest of the world.
Number 95.
Sir, good afternoon. This is Sanjay Agarwal. So wishing everybody a new year. My question is, I've interviewed a couple of startups, about 100, in all spaces, in the drone space, in the AI recently. So we also visited Niti Aayog some time back. So Niti Aayog has showcased these startups, but that is just restricted to a few startups, which started about 5 years back. So are you planning to build up some center where all these startups come under one umbrella, sir?
No, of course, Niti Aayog is also, they are doing a good job out of those. Altered Tinkering Labs has been a very successful experiment, particularly in the school level, especially helping us to identify the undiscovered talent among the youngsters. And that is the time we could catch them young, adolescent age. So, yes, as far as bringing them under one umbrella is concerned, we have a startup movement as such, but since, as I said, it got off only after Prime Minister made that appeal, somewhere in 2015 or 16 from the Red Fort. So we are rather in very early stage, but in spite of that, we are now being recognized as number 3 ecosystem in the world. So which means we have a huge potential, we have a huge resource. So in 6-7 years, we have risen to number 3 in the world. And then, of course, as you rightly said, since we have to integrate, we may not be having a formal umbrella as such, but we are moving in the same direction. And to move forward, we have to have a common, and we would certainly make the amends as we move on. We are doing actually, because as we learn from the experience that we gain.
सर, मैं श्रीकांत भाटिया हूँ सर. सर मेरा इधर सर, ये आपके इधर सर.
हाँ भाटिया सर.
सर मेरा सवाल है कि जो आतंकवादी गतिविधियां होती हैं उसमें ज़्यादातर देखा गया है कि यूथ होते हैं जो 20 से 30 साल की एज के होते हैं. तो सरकार उनको मोटिवेट करने के लिए कि भाई आप ऐसी गतिविधियों में नहीं जाएं और आप मेन स्ट्रीम में आके सरकार के साथ काम करें और देश के साथ काम करें, देश के हित के साथ काम करें, तो क्या सरकार की कोई ऐसी स्कीम है जो इस तरह के प्रिजनर्स ऑलरेडी जेल में बंद हैं किसी न किसी आरोपों में, क्या उनका भी स्टार्टअप कुछ ऐसा नई चीज अगर वो खोलना चाहें या स्टार्ट करना चाहें तो सरकार उनको प्रोत्साहन देगी जो लोग ऑलरेडी जेल में हैं, आरोपों में पकड़े गए?
अब वो स्ट्रिक्टली स्पीकिंग इस विभाग के साथ उसका संबंध तो नहीं, लेकिन जो आतंकी मुख्य धारा में आना चाहते हैं या उसका प्रमाणिक ढंग से उनके हृदय परिवर्तन हुआ दिखता है, तो निश्चय बहुत सारे ऐसे उदाहरण हैं जहां सरकार ने उनका सहयोग किया है, भिन्न भिन्न क्षेत्रों में अपना जीवन नए सिरे से प्रारंभ करने के लिए. और निश्चय अगर स्टार्टअप के लिए कोई पोटेंशियल होगा तो उसके लिए भी उनके लिए उसी प्रकार की सुविधा और प्रावधान उपलब्ध रहेंगे जैसे कि बाकी नागरिकों के लिए, क्योंकि जब है वो भी है तो भारत के ही नागरिक.
So now we close this question answer session. Now I would like
Anyone who's very keen, वो आज स्टार्टअप का है, आज स्टार्टअप. हाँ, what are you saying?
So I am Monica. I am from Jammu. So I can relate to what all you are saying. I don't have a question, but I want to compliment you for all the good work.
I hope those connected from Jammu are listening to you.
Yes.
You can say
So,
that.
sir, please continue the good work, and the state needs many more such
It's
expos
something
and
like when
CSR
you are
labs.
appreciated outside, you are sometimes tempted to say, please go and tell my family also. So I hope they realize what good work is being done by all of you over here.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
नव वर्ष मंगल में हो सर।
जी मैडम।
पत्रकार भाइयों को भी नव वर्ष मंगल में हो, मंत्री और मंत्रियों के साथी जो हैं उनको भी नव वर्ष मंगल में हो। सर क्वेश्चन यहाँ उठता है सर कि अर्जुन सिंह के समय में बहुत सारे आत्मसमर्पण किया ऐसे लोगों ने, जैसे उस समय वहाँ बहुत ज़्यादा डाकू थे और बहुत ज़्यादा ऐसे टेररिस्ट थे, तो हम चाहते हैं कोई ऐसी विधि अपनाई जाए, वो आत्मसमर्पण की कोई प्रक्रिया अपनाए। आप कह रहे हैं ना कि वो खुद आए करे, तो उन्हीं को एफर्ट करना है, हम लोगों को तो करना नहीं है।
नहीं, निश्चय आप ठीक कह रही हैं और मुझे विश्वास है कि संबंधित विभाग इस पर निश्चय गंभीरता से सोचते होंगे, क्योंकि ये इस विभाग के मैंडेट से थोड़ा बाहर था, इसलिए मैंने बहुत ज्यादा सार्वजनिक बात करना ठीक नहीं समझा।
और सर आत्मसमर्पण के लिए उन्हें आमंत्रण दें आप, कुछ इस प्रकार की आप अपनी तरफ से कोई डिक्लेरेशन दें कि आप आए, हम आपको अच्छे कार्यों में लगाएंगे। ये नए साल का नई तरह से आगाज करें तो बेहतर होगा सर।
जो अधिकृत है ऐसा करने के लिए उन तक आपकी बात पहुंचा दी जाएगी।
हाँ, दूसरी बात सर, प्रीवियसली स्टार्टअप्स हुए थे सरकारों में, उन पर भी थोड़ा मॉनिटर करें कि वो कहाँ तक कामयाब हुए और ये कहाँ तक कामयाब होगा आपका ये।
बिल्कुल आप ठीक कह रही है। हमारे पास उदाहरण के तौर पर एक योजना है जिसके तहत हम मिड करियर में महिलाओं को सहयोग देते हैं। यानी कुछ एक ऐसी महिलाएं होती हैं जो किसी कारणवश एक काम शुरू करती हैं फिर छोड़ देती हैं, कभी पारिवारिक कारणों से, गृहस्थी के कारणों से विवाह हो जाता है। एक महिला मैंने देखी जो हमारे CSIR इंस्टीट्यूट में काम करती थी मध्य प्रदेश में, तो दिल्ली में पहुंच गई विवाह के कारण। यहाँ उस प्रकार की अनुकूलता का कार्य नहीं था, तो किसी समाचार पत्र में वो विज्ञान की रिपोर्टर बन गई। तो इस तरह से हैं, और उस मिड करियर में अगर वो वापस आना चाहें तो उनको सपोर्ट कैसे देनी है, इस प्रकार की हमने योजना बनाई है, विच इज इन प्लेस। व्हाट इज दैट स्कीम कॉल्ड दैट वेयर यू सपोर्ट? आई थिंक दैट इज DB, दिस टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड, TDB। सो वो उस प्रकार से हम कर रहे हैं। लेकिन जैसा मैंने फिर से आपसे निवेदन करूंगा कि इट इज टू सीरियस अ सब्जेक्ट टू बी लेफ्ट टू साइंटिस्ट अलोन। इसमें हमें समाज का भी सहयोग चाहिए, मीडिया का भी सहयोग चाहिए, अच्छी सूझबूझ रखने वाले नागरिक महानुभावों का भी सहयोग चाहिए। तो सब कुछ मिलकर के होगा तो निश्चय ही एक अच्छा विचार भी है।
हम लोग तो सर आप जानते ही हैं, सब लोग 24/7 कार्य करते हैं।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
और धूप बारिश ये सब चीजों का प्रभाव नहीं करते हैं, लेकिन सरकार ने पत्रकारों के लिए कोई व्यवस्था भी नहीं बनाई है, उसके बाद भी करते हैं। हम चाहते हैं कोई व्यवस्था बनाई जाए पत्रकारों के लिए।
से कोई है नहीं, लेकिन कभी कोई
पत्रकारों का भी एक स्टार्टअप करा दिया जाए सर।
ये मिसेस गौर ने सुन ली आपकी बात।